Captain's flock. I've had a lot of these thoughts for quite some time about, I guess it's more of like a deep remembrance. I can always go back to when I was a kid, certain things that stood out to me. For example, this memory pops in my mind quite often. It was 5th grade. One topic came up, I guess we were doing geography or something in class, and we started talking about Antarctica. Back then, of course, that was my first really, I guess, introduction to it. I remember having this strong inclination, knowingness about Antarctica. I just like saying Antarctica. But I remembered Antarctica. I didn't really have, a clear focus of why, but I remember it being familiar to me. Also, another remembrance was that there were large monsters surrounding Antarctica. So I had a lot of these little, I guess, flickers of remembrance, even though not having a full picturesque slide in my mind of memories to actually flip through. But that was a big one. Another one when I was a kid, I always wanted to, there's a certain section in the backyard I always wanted to dig. It sounds so weird saying that, but I just really wanted to dig underground. This is before the whole kids got the concept of digging to China. This feeling of I needed to get underground where there's something under the ground. And now, flash forward to the future here, I know that there's a lot of truth to that. What I really wanted to talk about is something that this also has been on my mind for many, many years. When I started really looking into land, I guess I'd always instinctively knew not to purchase land by a national forest, because the more that I was looking into rural areas, you start kind of getting into the government national forest or nature reserves or whatever. I always had this feeling you just don't want to live next to anything like that. Clarity to my consciousness about those things, it makes sense. Understanding how we are surrounded by all these, you could call them cryptids, elementals. They're very broad. I use that term very loosely to describe a lot of different beings. Basically, our vessels, one, of course, it is from the chemicals in the water and air and all those things and the frequency. But I don't know if it's just that or if our actual biology, our physiological, our vessels have been DNA tampered with, as we've heard many stories or writings about that. Definitely it's true. Biologically, these vessels have been tampered with to prevent our vision from seeing into the full spectrums of the different light, because that's the biggest limitation, I would say, is now that my eyes have been opened more to all these different beings all around us. I mean, more so the more rural you go, the higher probability of seeing even more abundance of different beings or creatures. I guess what I'm really trying to lead into is that these national forests, have, as all land and water pretty much does here, have, a Middle Earth and part of government facilities and cave systems and just underground cities all throughout. Hybridization of different beings. It's just somehow maybe there's been a house cleansing where they all got kind of shoved underground, or the ones that are up here on the upper earth living amongst us are using some kind of, either they're wearing technology or they're taught different ways how to manipulate energy. But I think it really comes down to a lot of technology too, creating a frequency fences to create these different dimensions that we don't see because our vessels are, programmed to be more limited. So it's kind of like a dual situation of keeping the illusions and the dimensions separate. But a lot of these beings, are all around, and they're all from like tiny, tiny, tiny little people, little beings, all the way up to our size and much, much larger. And two, I've had, different experiences and encounters with different beings. It really comes down to you got to trust your sensitivities and your feelings and your instinct, about the stimuli that you're picking up in your environment. You might not understand it fully. You at least recognize it and appreciate that you're picking up things or you're feeling things, and you're gonna allow yourself to process it. That's usually how it comes. Usually information comes to me, and then I may not really understand it fully until it kind of just starts unfolding and the pieces kind of become more clear. But our sight is one of the tools that they've tweaked our consciousness, our vessel, to be limited within, that we don't really see fully into the full spectrums of reality, what's going on. Another thing that I've been reflecting on for years is that, at some point, these different beings that are within the middle earth or underground will be coming up to the surface. And I've had different dreams over the years reflect that too. I think there are ways to possibly bring back better sight or heighten our senses more so we aren't so defenseless, with seeing like what's around us, especially if we're going into the forest or wooded areas. I think about that often, especially when I did have the opportunity a few years back to be secluded by myself in the middle of the woods, which I've never had that experience before, so maybe that's why the forest, opened up to me the way it did. And everybody was like surrounding. It is something to think about on how we can strengthen not just our inner vision, but our outer vision. Tap into those potentials within our vessel. Because I do think that our sight is like one of the biggest, at least physical senses that have been tampered with. This world is easily more hidden and mundane. So just some late night thoughts. Not really too late night, but for a Sunday night, I guess it's kind of a little late. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys are doing well, like always.